get my 6. What's up, everybody? So, what is it that's starting to happen all over again? You came here because of the title. Maybe I took the time to make a really cool cover image. I don't know. Like, as I'm filming the video, I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I know one thing. And then if that is indeed what's been going on, if that's what's been happening with everybody's pets and livestock here lately in mass again. So let's get right to it. Let me explain the title with some video footage I took just a little earlier today when I went to see some friends about some gardening stuff. Have a look. It's happening to too many people. Too many people are losing their pets here just within the last 90 days. The question remains, what is taking them? Tell you, just a stone's throw from the house. If you watch my wife's channel, her channel is called Life with Dearly. If you don't, you should. She's a sweetheart. The only thing, if you have never been over there, you're gonna be like, wow, why did she marry him? I mean, she's amazing. She's beautiful. She's great. But we made a video on her channel maybe Saturday, I think, or no, Friday. So as of this recording, it's like 3 days ago, where we were putting dirt that we had purchased from a dirt maker supplier into some raised garden beds in her garden. And there was a dog in that video with us. Well, it's not our dog, but you may have noticed that dog in a couple of videos from about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more than a year or so. Yeah, it would have been last January. It's about a year and 3 months or so ago. The time frame in this dog is significant. So if you'll remember about the dog, if you don't, you can go back and watch a video on this channel. I'm going to try to remember to put it at the end of this video. It's called This Time the Neighbors Saw It Too, where I tell the story about the video footage I'd gotten the night before that when I'd come out and there was 3 somethings out here with mega eye shine walking around when I'd come out to get firewood. My wife and I, my beautiful bride Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, who you can watch on her channel at Life with Dearly. We were watching movies and it was really cold, and so I'd come over to the distant wood piles to get some well-seasoned red oak because it burns really hot. And there was something out here walking around in the ice, in the snow. So I ran back into the house after seeing the eye shine and followed it for a ways. Got it on video. It's on the channel. But realized quickly they were flanking me. One kind of stayed off at an angle, like they were pulling a spear. And then the other 2 kind of drifted off this way, so I continued to follow, and then one of the 2 stopped, and then the other one kept coming around this way, a wedge, that's what it is. They were forming a wedge around me. That's what we called it in the Army. And then I realized, oh my gosh, once this one gets to where it's going and stops, the triangulation has been completed, and I'm basically surrounded. And so once I realized they were doing that, I ran back in the house. Most of you saw that. So the next morning, the dog that was in the video the other day, 3 days ago, is at our house. We'd never met the owner. There was a number on the tag, so we called, and he came and got his dog. Didn't talk much about what happened the night before because we'd never met. I didn't want to come across as a kook. I was trying to figure out if the events were related. Why was I seeing these strange eyes and these strange creatures out here that I to this day have never identified, walking around trying to flank me and surround me, and then the next day this dog's here. Well, just a couple of weeks after that, the dog came back. I took the dog to the guy's place because I called, couldn't get couldn't get an answer, but I knew where he lived by this time. Just a few miles away as a crow would fly. And that's when I found out why this dog goes missing when she does. That is because on those nights, something or multiple somethings are outside their house, and they live in the middle of the woods. Like, we're pretty secluded here, but they're even more secluded. And this dog raises so much of a ruckus, they have to let her out. It's like she's trying to tear the back door down to get out of the house. And she takes off after this thing or these things for the rest of the night. And when that happened last year, just like 3 days ago, it happened again. And she chased whatever it or they are or were this direction. You know, and I made my video last week when I finally, you know, came clean about Cleopatra, my potential Bigfoot Sasquatch hunting companion, and why we rehomed her to get her to a safer place because of this something or these things potentially nearly capturing her last summer. So when the guy came for his dog this time, and again, I don't want to retell the same stories over and over. It's in the other video. I asked if, like that second time it happened last year, if he had seen the eyes, because when it happened the second time, when his dog came here a couple weeks later, he had the light out and he saw the eyes too. And he said he didn't this time because the dog was going so crazy. The only thing he could think of was to open the door to let her out so she didn't tear the whole back wall off the house. But he told me that in regard to the time we spoke last year, he got to think a little bit further about it, because he mentioned when he shined the light out and he saw these eyes, he thought it was raccoons raiding a bird feeder, because it was at the edge of his lawn where his yard meets his forest, like back here. He has some bird feeders that are up about 8 feet high, and that's where he'd seen the eye shine. But it later occurred to him, wait a minute, it couldn't have been raccoons raiding the bird feeders, because the bird feeders that he has, they're not attached to a tree. They're not, you know, dangling from a branch. They're on metal poles, the kind that you screw together for a lot of lawn type decor. And the reason he's got them there on poles is because they're about 15 feet away from the wood line. So there was nowhere to hang them. And the reason he wanted to get them so high above the wood line is because for a time when he put the bird feeders up years ago, he had a couple of cats. He doesn't have any cats anymore, but they used to just hang the bird feeders from a tree at the wood line so they could sit in their window and look out their big picture window and see the birds feeding at the feeders. But what they realized is their cats were getting up in the trees and waiting on the birds and getting the birds. So they moved them out, you know, a considerable distance away from the tree line so they could still have their bird feeders, but they had to get the poles to do it. That's my point of this. There were no trees they could hang them from, dangle them from. So when he realized, okay, that couldn't have been raccoons raiding the bird feeders because there was no tree for the raccoons to climb on, he went back to his house and he looked at the bird feeders again, and he made a mental note at the trees of the wood line behind the feeders, 10 or 15 feet back, and said, okay, he picked out a branch. The raccoons would have had to have been in that tree, whatever it was. If it was something in a tree, they had to be at that branch because that was where the line went. Because, you know, you can't judge distance. If you were to walk up to the bird feeder and say, okay, here's the bird feeder, what's it at level with the bird feeder if I go back to the trees? Well, it's skewed. Your measurement's going to be skewed because that's not the point where you were standing when you saw it. So that's why he had to pick a limb. So he goes to the bird feeder, and he realizes the point on that tree is about 6 feet up. 6 feet up. So he goes over to inspect the tree, looking for claw marks. Has anything dug into this tree, and it wasn't one of the trees where he had a feeder, so there would have been no claws left or anything from the cats he previously owned. There were no claw marks, and this is when it happened last year, when he shined the light, saw the eyes, and it was about 6 feet. Okay, so if there would have been something clinging to that tree, smelling perhaps the bird feed and the bird feeder, it would have left an indication. There would have been a sign something had shimmied up that tree, held itself there, but there were no marks. There was nothing. So we're talking about glowing eyes at about 6 feet up, because a lot of folks have been saying, and this is the direction in which I'm really leaning and believing, that if you'll notice, I'm sitting considerably further away from the forest than I usually do. Usually I sit in the forest. There's reason for this. Here come the crows and a tree knock. All right, so I'm leaning toward believing it's a cougar, a mountain lion, a panther. I don't know if it's a black panther or like a regular colored panther, kind of like tan, like a white-tailed deer. But had that been a panther that night, there would have been claw marks, because even the panther would have had to have shimmied up that tree and held on there with the claws. But what was surrounding me, what was triangulating around me, was no cat, or were no cats. Those eyes were, I would say, 6 feet or more above the ground. So he comes and he gets his dog this time, and I ask him again, did you see any of these weird things? He's like, no, again. I'm just trying to make sure the dog gets out of the house before she tears the back of the house off. And I said, are you aware that some pets have gone missing around here? And he says, yeah, I am. He says he's had several people come out to his place, one looking for a goat, but it's not the same guy that was looking for the goat that was from a different direction, a different way, that our neighbors recently texted about because they'd stopped by to see them. It's a different goat. Okay, so now there's more than one goat that's gone missing, and the guy mentioned a missing cat. And then you saw the video footage I took from earlier today. That's not the missing cat this guy was talking about, and that was in a different direction from where he lives, where the goat went missing. All very, very close here in a pretty tight radius. So I told the guy, I said, look, like I just told you in this video, I think there might be a panther around here. And I shared with him briefly the story about our cat getting attacked by something last year, and then pretty much becoming an agoraphobe, not wanting to hear or not wanting to come out much at all, only when I would come out, making sure to go in with me. You know, and this is a cat that would spend nights, we'd see her once a day. She'd come clawing at the window because she wanted some cat food. I'm not even going to say she was hungry, because she eats so much wildlife when she's out here. It was past tense. It's still having a hard time speaking about her in the past tense since having rehomed her. But she'd come in, I guess, just because she was craving some cat food. She'd eat very quickly and go back out, and we wouldn't see her again for another 24 hours. So she went from being that type of a cat to being the type of cat that didn't want to come outside. And at certain times at night, when strange screams and mysterious roars would wake me up, she would go under the bed and not come out from underneath the bed till the next day. So I told the guy, I said, I think we might have panthers here. And he told me he's never seen one, but he hopes to, and he believes he will. And I said, well, why is that? And he explained that, you know, his family's been in this area for many generations, and the men, the lineage going back on the male side, and his family have all claimed to have seen a cougar or a panther, whatever you want to call it, once in their lifetime. His father, this guy's a little bit younger than me. So his he's aged. So his father and his grandfather that he knows of. Now, he doesn't know about anything back from that, but that's going back 2 generations. He's the third. And he wholeheartedly believes they're here because the claims his family made were not outrageous. They just, one was at night, the thing jumped into the road, hit the middle of the road. It was like a 1-lane old country road coming out here, and one more leap and it was gone. And it was a big cat. I mean, and it's a type of road where even a deer would have to pounce at least twice to be able to clear the road. This cat cleared it in 1 pounce. And then that was his father's story. And his grandfather's story, grandfather was out hunting and he saw one on the far side of a field, like way far, like 3/4 of a mile away, walking. He could tell it was a cat, but the distance was so far he shouldn't have been able to see it if it had been a cat. It was the middle of summer and it was a hay field, and we mow here, but the parts that we don't mow and the hay fields that don't mow, if it goes unmowed by the middle of summer, this stuff's 2.5 feet tall. And he clearly saw the head and the shoulders and the back and the tail of this cat walking through that hay field. Okay. So I just threw it out there. I was like, well, your dog got out again, ripping the back of the house off, came all the way over here, followed whatever it was over here again. I think there might be a panther, and this is why these animals are going missing. And I think maybe the panther's running from your dog. I think maybe there's a connection. And then he said to me, he goes, well, I have 2 thoughts. He said, on the panther business, I think there's probably more than one around here. I think there's several. But he said, number 2, I don't believe it's what's taking the people's pets. And I don't think that's why my dog is still here. Because he told me, he is firmly of the opinion that if his dog went out and got after a panther, that panther would kill that dog. If that dog persisted and chased that panther would know to just run far enough away from the dog owner's house to where it felt safe, and then turn on the dog and basically just swipe that dog's throat out. And I thought about it, and I said, well, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, the dog is big, it's healthy, it's young, but panthers are panthers. And he said, well, so that brings me to my second thought. And I said, what's that? And he says, I do believe there's something out here in these forests and in these fields that surround us, and it's beautiful, otherwise, beautiful farming area with forests and farms everywhere, that's taking these pets and is running his dog out. He thinks this thing's afraid of his dog, and he believes that a panther wouldn't be afraid of the dog. He says he doesn't believe it's a panther. He doesn't believe it's a bear. He doesn't believe it's... I asked him what he thought it was, and he just says, well, I'm not sure. He says, I don't think it's anything that we'd be too familiar with. And I started laughing. I said, oh, yeah, I know. Maybe it's Bigfoot. And I'm laughing, playing it off, right? And this guy does not, to my knowledge, know about this channel. He got stone cold serious. His face became pale, and he said, I got to get to getting. And he grabbed his dog by the collar and just turned around and walked straight to his truck and left. Didn't even say goodbye. Oh, he wasn't offended. He didn't think I was a kook. I can assure you that. What I think is that perhaps I hit a little too close to home. No, I'm not going back there this time. I'll see you next time for more.